So they're just sort of looking on Twitter for any hashtag involving anything of those, and they're being printed out. That's going out in the Twitter feed there, being sort of sent through. You'll see down this left-hand side, there's like input nodes that you can monitor. They've got the input for MQTT, WebSockets, FTP ones, where you want to send it. Either just a straightforward print message to an external site, to a WebSocket, some functions to work with, some social networks there if you want to email, send out to Twitter. There's a Facebook one as well, sentiment analysis part to it. Right down at the bottom there was one that I added on there for weather. That's because it's configurable. You can easily add extra nodes to this to put together. So I used one of the weather ones. If I have a look at the weather one, then whoever made this particular node, and it's done by this weather web service, they provided a node for it. As long as you've got an API key to use it, as long as you've got some authorization. Can we keep the chatter down a bit, please? So it's only because I've had a bit of feedback that some people complaining about others chattering or anything, they're trying to concentrate. So often if you're using one of these web services, you need an API key to put in. And this particular one, you can then specify where you want the weather for. That was a blank one put in. If I get one of the other ones that I've done already, get in the Manchester weather, say. That was the one where I asked the weather service to look for Manchester and what to do with it, and its output, an if statement there saying send the output of that weather. The weather goes over as the payload. I can just say, look, if the payload's weather is clouds, then set the payloads with the usual clouds above Manchester or something, and then broadcast it out. So you're sort of using this as a big tool for joining things together. For it. And it's just a question of, are there the right sort of nodes to use for this? Now, a lot of these are probably sort of coming through to me now, because a lot of the things are emailed out. And just to see whether or not they're coming through. I've got an email window open. I'm hoping that nobody sent me a naughty email, but it would be embarrassing. No, nothing. I was just waiting for some of the messages coming through, but nothing arrived as yet. So it's aimed at being able to build these apps using fairly large APIs and linking them together. So you don't need to know how to use a Twitter API. You don't need to know how to use Facebook API or any of these sort of others. As long as they've got a node in there that they've configured to be able to interact with it. Typically there'll be some sort of identification for it. So it was originally put together by IBM for wiring together hardware devices for it. And at the time it was just really a proof of concept for it. But it's really sort of taken off as a way of demonstrating the flow from one end to another and linking all these disparate APIs together, sort of thing that you've been sort of trying to do. Writing this back-end glue between applications. And you can do a lot of live trying on this. You can just sort of very quickly say, well, let's just quickly get this data from our fidgets and send it out as an email. If I said, okay, I've just changed your assignment, I want you to, now, any values that are coming out, I want you to tweet them and I want you to email them. Or something like that. And you go, oh no, how are we going to do that? Well, it's going to take us hours and hours. Yeah, but if I said, okay, well, can you just do that in NodeRed? You developed it in NodeRed, and I said, can you just email it out or tweet it out? 5 minutes of a job to sort of put in. And you won't think twice about putting something extra into it. You can easily change these sorts of things. It's not particularly any of these sorts of things. It's not really for writing mobile applications for it. It's typically to run in a web browser. It's an application running in a web browser to it. It's a bit more than just a dashboard with widgets inside to it. It's not particularly high performance, enterprise capable application runtime it's not particularly efficient even necessarily, but it very quickly knocks things together. It's not the answer to life, the universe and everything. It's a good start at getting your application underway. Certainly you can get sort of proof of concept things being put together and demonstrate something to your user pretty sort of quickly. Very good at picking up sensor readings. There's a lot of nodes for Arduinos out there already. There's been a lot of people working in that field, developing Arduino stuff. But when we started this other project last year, there was one node that worked with fidgets, and it was just something that somebody had put up on GitHub, and it only controlled an accelerometer to it. So it was just sort of open for development there. That's with the sort of stage where it was at, and so Jack and I just sort of developed these things together and published these fidget nodes for working with. They're not perfect, but they're a start at being able to interact with that sort of fidget toolkit to be able to then sort of send the messages out there to sort of work with. That link there is that one back to Roderick Gates's one. A lot of stuff on Raspberry Pis as well out there. The underlying thing that it's built upon is Node.js. It's JavaScript based. Can either run in a browser, but you can run them sort of standalone for it. And there's a bit of spiel there about all the sort of JavaScript type things for it to work with. It's built already using a series of tools. So they already use these things like jQuery to sort of piece it together. And it's built around the idea of flows and nodes. That a node will do something. It will take its input from somewhere, do something, and then send it out. So you can have as many outputs as you like, just dragging a link between them. So in that case, that blue one on the left, feeding into the device data, also feeding into this function node, which presumably does something. A function node will do some manipulation with the data. And then there's like a switch node that decides, okay, depending on what that thing has done, can you just pass it either to the top one or the bottom one, and then whatever the output is, just display it. So it's doing the sorts of things that you do in a programming language anyway to it. But it's putting this sort of visual front end onto making some of the higher level things link together more easily. Typically all done in JSON. That whole diagram there, if you save it, because normally what you want to do is if you've been working on some code and you save it, you're normally saving the Java source code, you're saving the C# source code or something like that. This is all background saved in JSON format. Not something that you normally have to see because you interact with the program using that visual editor. But in the background, it's saving it as its nodes as a big stream of JSON. But what it does mean as well is it becomes quite easy to transfer a node from one machine to another because you can just give somebody this JSON and import that inside it. It's literally just copying and pasting in somewhere. Generally, that's the sort of technical way of doing it. Generally what they do is just say, here's a little installation script and it will just automatically add a new node down that left-hand side to sort of work with it. So you link them together, link it here to a Raspberry Pi, linking up to, not very good sort of photo imagery, but controlling the sensors around it. And this one was linked up to some Arduino ones. And just like I showed in that one that Jack had done previously, you can see how you can sort of move one thing and it immediately affects what's happening in that node flow, or the other way around. You can change the node flow and turn the motor from it. It's only really a little step, or perhaps a bigger step, above what you're doing already in that assignment. You've already in the assignment got the ability to send something to a database and retrieve it, and you've done it from a standalone client in Java, and then you've seen that you can use pretty much the same routines from a mobile app. So you can say, you can click a button and it will just send a message to store something, or click another one and it retrieves it back. All you need is that communication with that back end to do it, and this is sort of putting a nice little front end onto doing that. Then once you pick up this data from the devices, you can also send it out to email, whichever one you've got, using these sort of basic node types. Whether they're injection nodes that start off at really like the left-hand side, if you like, really we're using the European way of writing things. Sets off with creating something and triggers some initial aspect of it. It might be something where you're just feeding something in. You can have a button on it that just says feed in the value debug, or feed in the value 100, and it just sort of pushes some data into it. Or feed this in every 5 minutes. So if you wanted to repeatedly request some data, you could sort of tell this thing to repeat every now and then. On the other side of it, the debug, where you want to display something. Debug node, in our case, is typically used like a system out print line, just something to display on the screen so it can show